Hi, my name is Alessandra Navidvari, and I'm an author based in Nova Scotia, Canada. I research a variety of historical topics. One of them is Vikings and Norse voyages to North America in pre Columbian times. I decided to reach out to a fellow author who lives in Norway. His name is Tom Thowsen. He writes adventure mystery novels, and one of them is about the Kensington Runestone. It's a very famous artifact that was discovered in Minnesota in the year 1898. It caused quite a bit of controversy even back then, and I'm not sure that its mystery has ever been solved. So let's see what Tom has to say about the Kensington Runestone. Enjoy. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Alessandra. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. How are you?
Fine, thanks. And how are you?
I'm well. I
Yeah.
understand that you live in Norway, right?
Yes, that's right.
Which part of Norway?
In the southeastern part of Norway, in the old Viking district of Viken, where the word Viking comes from, according to some scholars.
Really?
And we have just a few kilometers from where I live, they are digging a Viking ship right now. The
Oh,
Yellowstone Viking ship, the newest found in the last 100 years. So they have actually found another ship as well, right in close to where I live, the Tune Viking ship.
so you're right in the middle of Viking history.
Yes, absolutely. And we have even carvings from the Bronze Age around here in my district. So with the ship carving and all the ships, they traveled over to Denmark, and it took less than a day to travel over to Denmark from here.
Well, if I ever visit Norway, I'll make sure that I will come to your area and I'll try to see this new ship.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
You're welcome.
great. Well, I have had interest in the Viking history and Norse voyages to North America for a long time, but it wasn't until I moved to Nova Scotia that I realized that Vikings might have even come here. So I'm very excited to discuss this topic with you today. And there's a couple of things I want to cover. One is the famous Kensington Runestone, which is
Yes.
on the other side of the Atlantic. And
Mhm.
um, and of course, you and your books, because I know you are a successful writer, a novelist, and that one of your novels is based on this Kensington Runestone.
That's right.
Good.
Called Kayaveta
Yeah.
after an Indian woman name.
So, Tom, what is your background? How did you become an author? And what's even made you write this book about the Kensington Runestone?
Yeah, I'm educated as a designer, and I worked for many years as a designer. And one day in 2007, I get sick, so I couldn't work anymore as a designer. And that was one of the darkest hours in my life. And then I read, came over an article about the Kensington Runestone in a magazine, and that story talked to me. So I never was the same after I read it. It took me. I felt a kind of sorrow with those people who went on this trip in 1362, and the finder as well, the Swedish farmer immigrant in Minnesota who found the stone.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of decided that I want to be an advocate for these people, because I discovered that the stone was very controversial, and most scholars thought it was a hoax.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and I was convinced that it was a real thing, from a real medieval thing. And what I discovered was that it fits very well with our Scandinavian history at in the mid 1300s, because Norway and Sweden was in a union back then in the mid 1300s.
If I may jump in, what do you mean Norway and Sweden were in a union? Were they one kingdom?
Yes, sort of. It was a father and son union. Magnus Eriksson, he was the king, the father. He was the king of Sweden and Norway, and his son Håkon, he became the ruler of Norway. And then in 1362, he took over Sweden as well. And so it was a kind of union, unified. And back then, Norway had also Greenland, which is very close to America.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
The
So,
jumping point, right?
so, and they then knew about Vinland as well, because it was discovered by Leif Erikson around 300 years previous.
Right.
So it was known.
So you mentioned the year 1362, and that's the year when the Crown Prince Håkon became the King of Sweden. Yes.
Yes, yes. In February in 1362, he was crowned.
And this is the year that's also mentioned on the Kensington Runestone?
Yes, that's right. So the beginning of this expedition could have been a few years before that, because his father, Magnus Eriksson, he sent a royal commandment, which still exists today, where he sent a person which is named Paul Knudsen to go to Greenland and bring Christianity back, because they have been taking the Indians' religion or something. So he was sent on a mission back in the 1350s sometime. We don't know exactly year, but so there was things happening at that time, and many of the inhabitants on Greenland had mysteriously disappeared from Greenland as well.
What happened to them?
It's a mysterious thing, but many of us believe that they went over to America because it's much more nature and trees and better for farming. And America was closer to Greenland than Norway, for example. So it would be quite natural to go over there and start a new life.
Well, and you said that Leif Erikson came to North America around the year 1000, and so Norsemen had over 300 years to explore it and learn about it, and maybe invite others to come and settle there. Right.
Absolutely.
So Greenlanders, if they had a hard time surviving in Greenland, logically would have migrated to North America.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. But they did not notify the King of Norway that they were leaving.
Exactly. They was escaping taxes and.
Oh, they were escaping heavy taxation?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so it sounds like King Magnus sent his royal commander to Greenland to find the settlers who disappeared. And his name was Paul Knudsen.
Yes, that's right.
And he left in, you said 1355 or so?
Yes, that's the year many of us believe he went over.
Okay.
So we went. He had permission to punish these people.
Oh, to punish them?
Yes, to punish them, and that could be very hard. So Paul Knutson had disappeared. He could have been killed on that journey. We don't know what happened to him.
So Paul Knutson
Mm-hmm.
was commissioned by the king to go to Greenland and look for these settlers, and then he was gone for a while. And do we know for certain that he went to North America?
No, we don't know for sure. But he disappeared and never came back.
He never returned.
No, he never came back. He disappeared because he left traces in documents and things like that, which we still can see today. But after this mission, he disappears. He had farms and own properties in Bergen in western Norway, and he disappeared.
Oh,
There were never any trace of him after that. So he probably died on that journey.
Did he send any report about the Western settlements in Greenland back to King Magnus? Did he report back to the king saying, I found them or I didn't find them?
No, we have, but there have been reports, but there was a report about 8 people who returned in 1364. 2 years after the Kensington Runestone was carved. Okay. But we don't know what the message was, the exact message. So
and these would have been the men from that voyage that had sailed with.
Yes, it seems so. It seems so. We have no direct evidence, but it looks like that. So.
Now, it's quite a long way from Greenland to Newfoundland in Canada, and then from there to go to Minnesota. So walk me through it. How do you think these Norsemen reached Canada? That's logical, but how did they get from Newfoundland on the east coast of Canada all the way to Minnesota?
Okay, yes, it could be in the Strait of St. Lawrence, for example, Niagara Falls and Great Lakes, for example. But it could even be on Hudson Bay and York Factory or the rivers up there as well. So we have there's indications that the distance from Hudson Bay and to Kensington, Minnesota adds up with 14 days travel, as it says on the stone, because 14 days travel is not the distance that you could travel on a day, but a distance measured with an astrolabe. See, so it's and that fits some 80 kilometers or something, nearly 90 kilometers one day travel.
Okay.
And then it adds up actually with the 14 days, the distance from Kensington, Minnesota to Hudson Bay.
Well, let's say these Norsemen made it to Minnesota, and they were looking for others who had gone missing from Greenland. And it sounds like they thought that maybe these Greenlanders were in Minnesota for some reason. So let's say that happened. Is there a record of any other artifacts besides Kensington Runestone that were found in that area that would support this event in the 1300s?
It's highly disputed, but there is records of another stone, Verndry stone or something, that went missing some believe it came to France with some priests and then disappeared in the Second World War or something.
Okay. So
Mhm.
another stone?
So no one knows where that stone is, but that was an inscribed stone with letters on. So
Okay. So additional rune stones. Okay.
uh,
And then
mm,
what happens to this expedition once it reached Minnesota? Something went wrong, right?
yes, it's they reported that 10 of their comrades was red with blood and dead, says the text on the stone. But we don't know actually what happened to them, if it was the natives or some theorize that it could be the plague, for example. It was the time when the Black Plague was even in the 1360s there was plagues in Europe.
Right.
So it could have been something like that too.
Okay. So some of these men from this expedition died in Minnesota.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously others survived because they either came looking for them or they were with them and they decided to erect a rune stone in their memory. Am I getting it right?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Well, for those people who are watching this and who don't know what a rune stone is, can you explain it to me?
Yes, that's the language of the Vikings. It was their alphabet, runes, and it's a slightly different alphabet than our normal alphabet today. But so they communicated with the runes, and it was used around 150 AD and further into modern age, actually, in some places in Scandinavia. But it was slightly different styles that was developed during the years.
Okay.
Mm.
So runes are an ancient writing in Scandinavia.
That's
Okay.
right.
There are different styles of runes,
Yes,
and these runes survived for a long time, even after Vikings accepted Christianity. Yes?
that's right. So many in Bergen, for example, so in the medieval times, common people could write runic letters on wooden sticks and as letters and send messages to each other. And they have found a lot of these wooden sticks in the harbor area in Bergen.
Wow.
Mm.
Interesting. The runes that were used on the Kensington runestone, are they the same kind of runes that would be expected of that era, of the 1350s or 1360s?
They are slightly different, but they are a little bit familiar with what became later from the mid Sweden. But they for a long time they accused the finder of inventing these runes
Oh,
because no one had seen them before.
oh, interesting. So the man who found the Kensington runestone,
Yeah.
Olaf Owen,
Yes, he was accused for
he
inventing.
was accused of inventing them?
Yes, he was, because they hadn't seen anything like this. So the first time it was a few years ago when they found something in Sweden, papers from the 1800s with similar runic alphabet as the Kensington Runestone, but not a blueprint. It was slightly different, but very similar.
Interesting. Well, what do you think? Was Olaf capable of inventing a new style of
Oh,
runes? Wouldn't he have used runes that he could find in a book and just copy?
No, yes, so he could have used normal runes from the Viking age because that was more available for him, I think. But he didn't have time to. He had to run a farm and make a living. So I can hardly believe that he had time to do things like that.
Well, and even to invent a story of this kind, about an expedition to North America with certain number of men from Norway and Sweden, like he would have had to know that Norway and Sweden were united at one time. They had the
Yeah.
same king. And why would he even pick that era?
Yes, exactly.
Find something easier, like earlier from Viking age.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, exactly. With Leif Erikson's time, it would have been more easier to pick.
Oh, for
But
sure. Yes, easier to pick, easier to believe. Right. Right. Yeah, this is a very complicated political story, even, right? About the
absolutely.
two countries coming together, having the same ruler, the colony in Greenland abandoned or evacuated, and Paul Knudsen being sent to find them. So it all matches, and I too find it hard to believe that Olaf Omen would know about all this and put it on a stone.
Exactly. And I don't know why it's so hard to believe that the Scandinavians could have reached Minnesota because the fur traders, the Englishmen and French, they traveled up to these rivers later. And the Vikings and the Scandinavians was used to travel on rivers with small boats. So why couldn't they if the French and fur traders did it later?
Can you tell me a little bit about the ships that were used for transatlantic voyages? What are they called, these ships?
That's a different kind of ships. We call them Viking ships or Knar, for example. That's a large merchant vessel that can take a lot of cargo. And you have long ships and different kind. There's a very many types of ships actually. We have ships that have survived to modern times as well. My father owned a little Viking ship called Snekke. It's called Snekke, and when I was a kid, we traveled on the sea with his Snekke. And that's a medieval boat type, small ship.
How many men would you require to man a Knar, for example, if you wanted to have a crew and put it on a long ship like this? How many would you need?
Eight men, I think, would do good.
Okay, and if you wanted to send them across the Atlantic Ocean to North America, the crew would have to be substantial, right? It would require quite a few men.
Absolutely, you need soldiers and different kind of people, even priests, I would think, and blacksmiths and all kind of
a stonemason, right? Somebody who
yeah,
chisel into stone.
absolutely. So he had. I think there was more people on the ship than eight. And as the text on the stone says, they had their ships at the sea 14 days from the stone. And so it could be that they had 2 or 3 ships at, for example, Hudson Bay, waiting for them.
Interesting. Well, there is a site in Wisconsin that was discovered about 40 years ago. It's on the Mohican Reservation. And I spoke to a tribal elder from the Mohican tribe, Mr. Wayne Murphy, and he described the site to me and the various symbols that are carved into stone there. And it's a lot of Christian symbols. And he believes that it could be the medieval Knights Templar who did it. But I'm thinking that there's a possibility that there could be a connection to this expedition from Norway and Sweden.
Absolutely, that's possible. Because we don't know who these men were. They could have been knights or some sorts, and we don't know. But the Knights Templar was ended in 1307, I think. But they could have survived as other Templar orders, for example, or a secret order for that matter. So it's I think it's a kind of possible.
Well, in your novel, you describe the historical background to the Kensington Runestone, and I'd love to hear more about it. So, at what point did you decide to write the novel about the Kensington Runestone? It's a strange topic to pick, but so exciting.
Yeah, quite early, because as a creative person, I knew that I had to bring this story alive, because only facts and doesn't live much. When you write fiction, you bring things to life. You imagine something happen and makes it alive to other people. So this was a natural thing to do for me. So I started quite early to write. I actually wrote a novel already in 2009, which is not out for sale now. We draw that, but it was pretty much the same story as my new story, which I sell on Amazon and the English market.
Yes, I saw it on Amazon, and I also visited your website. So I will encourage people who watch this interview to visit your website. So I'll show it, and hopefully they will be interested in your books as well. Now, you are still interested in the research of the Kensington Runestone. So I know that you are very active on Facebook, and that you have a group on Facebook which is dedicated to the research of Kensington Runestone. Would you like to tell me a little bit about the group?
Yes, absolutely. I can tell you that much of the facts that are in this novel are based on our research from that Facebook group.
Oh,
so, yes. So I have embedded it into the story, and so that's quite cool, actually. And there are many active amateur researchers in this Facebook group, with remains of Americans and Scandinavians mostly. But we have people from other countries as well. So it's quite amazing.
What do people in Norway think about the Kensington Runestone? Do they look at it as some kind of a oddity, curiosity, or do they take it seriously?
Oh, most Norwegians don't know anything about the Kensington Runestone. Often the media is talking about that it's a hoax, and then you get no debate about the stone, because they kill the whole story. So I had the national television station, NRK. to make a TV documentary back in 2012. But even there, they presented the stone as a hoax, and I was very disappointed about that documentary. And there was no debate after, even though many had interest in the documentary. So it was no discussions afterwards.
That's too bad. Speaking of documentaries, there is a new one out by actor Peter Stormare. It's called The American Runestone, and I believe it's available on Swedish satellite TV.
Yes, I saw it. It was very good. I liked it very much. So, and we have got many new members after that documentary.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, so there, that have made many more people aware of the stone, and people got very interested, both Norwegian and Swedes. So that's good.
I have not seen it yet because I don't have access to the satellite TV, but I saw a short trailer on YouTube, and it was about 2 minutes long, but in it, Peter Stormare said that the intent that he had when he was making the documentary was to clear the name of Mr. Olaf Åman, the discoverer of Kensington Runestone. And I found it to be very touching that he would want to do that. So can we talk about the discovery of the Kensington Runestone and Mr. Olaf Åman? Am I pronouncing his name right?
Yes, it's often we call him Olaf Åman or Olaf. It's I've seen on an Olaf with O and A and U. So I don't know, but first his name was Olaf Olsson. He got a new name after he went to America, Minnesota. Yes. So the name Åman he took from his childhood home or farm in Sweden, which was Ön, or if I remember right, island. It's called after. But the letter Ö and O with the two dots over.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist in English, so he called himself Åman.
Okay.
Instead of Öman. Yeah.
That's logical. All right.
So, no, he when he got his farm, he cleared a field in Minnesota, Alexandria, Minnesota. Excuse me, Kensington, Minnesota, and they was taking up trees, uprooting trees.
Yeah.
The day when they discovered the stone, and it was his one of his younger sons, Edward, who was 10 years old, who discovered that it was a stone entangled in the roots of the tree. It was an aspen tree. So they didn't know what it was. He said, looked at it, it's scribings on the stone. And they thought it was something that Native Americans had left.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it took a while before people actually knew that it was runes, runic writings.
So he himself did not recognize the runes?
No, he didn't recognize the runes because it was a quite new alphabet. So he didn't recognize it.
Interesting. And then he cleared it, and he decided to show it to someone, right?
Yes, that's right. So they got a translation. There was someone who translated it, but it was not fully correct at the beginning.
Okay.
And then they sent the government sent a sketch with the text over to Norway to the experts there, and they declared it a hoax directly when they saw the text. And we have to remember that at this point, Norway and Sweden was again a union, because during when the Napoleon Wars ended in the beginning of the 1800s, Norway and Denmark was on Napoleon's side in the war.
Mm-hmm.
And then Denmark lost Norway to Sweden.
Oh.
So we went into a union again.
Mm-hmm.
And this union was not, the Norwegian didn't like this union.
Oh, okay.
And when Olaf Oman found the Kensington Runestone in 1898,
Mm-hmm.
it was bad news, because it talked about a union, 8 Swedes and 22 Norwegians.
Okay.
So it was easy to dismiss the stone and said it was a fraud.
Did they think he made it for political reasons?
Yes, it could have been. It was bad news for those who wanted to break out of the union.
Right.
Because
He talked about Norwegians and Swedes together in one expedition.
Yes, exactly. So
okay.
it could create enthusiasm for the union. Look, we was in America and discovered something together. So.
And what did Olaf do once he was told that the stone is not authentic? You can have it back. What did he do with it?
No, he used it as a stepstone. Took it back and used it as a stepstone because he was disappointed and had no use for it. And after some years, there came a Norwegian scholar, Hjalmar Ruud Holland.
Mm-hmm.
And
I have a book. I have
a book about him.
Oh, yeah.
So he wanted to investigate further on the stone.
Okay.
And borrow the stone at first, and later he wanted to buy it from Olaf Oman. So he did actually a lot of good work. He discovered a lot of the history that it fit into the history with the Norwegian and Swedish Union back in the 1300s. And he found out about the possible route from Hudson Bay as well. So he did a lot of investigation.
Right. He tried to look into all the possible connections, and he tried to see how such a journey could have been possible, instead of saying, "Oh, it never happened. It's a lie."
Yes.
Okay.
He even took the stone over to Scandinavia and Europe, but they dismissed it and said that this is a hoax. He couldn't convince the scholars in Europe and Scandinavia.
Now, that was at a time when people didn't have a lot of technology, but nowadays we have things like electronic microscopes, right? We can take a slice of a stone and analyze it. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Did any geologists look at the stone instead of linguists? Did any geologists look at it?
Absolutely. Scott Wolter had made some major discoveries. He compared the Kensington Runestone with the 200 years gravestone from Maine.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was looking after migrants, the small pieces of stone, crushed stone. When you carve into a stone, these small particles weather after some years, and that weathering takes a very long time.
Yeah.
And he discovered that the 200 years old gravestone from Maine still had these small particles on the surface. they was not completely weathered. But on the Kensington Runestone, they was completely gone. And that tells that the Kensington Runestone must have been carved more than 200 years before Olaf Oman discovered the stone.
I think it takes some skill to be able to carve anything, because you have to know what kind of stone to choose. You have to know how to dress the stone, prepare the surface, right? You have to know the characters, how to use the tools. So it's not an easy job. Even if you wanted to do it for fun, it would take some time, and you would have to have the skill how to do it.
Yes, so it's not easy for someone to do a hoax like that. And there are words on the stone which the scholars said didn't exist, and it was wrong grammatical and things like that. But we have had an amateur linguist who studied a lot of documents, Richard Nielsen.
Heard of
heard of him, yeah. And he did
the supporters, right?
Yes, I have had the honor to know him. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, but he made some very good research on the stone and read a lot of medieval documents.
Oh, excellent.
I think many of those who studied the stone before did a poor job in many ways.
Oh, you think the scholars and scientists who studied the stone in the past, that they missed some things or maybe interpreted it wrong?
Yes, I think so. There are many examples on that, and Richard Nielsen he discussed a lot with the best runerologist in Sweden, Henrik Williams from Uppsala, and he was agree on many of his discoveries on the language and the runes.
So Professor Williams, he agreed with Richard Nielsen on some of the interpretation. Oh, that's good. And what does Henrik Williams think overall about the stone?
Oh, he is curious, I believe. That's my impression of him. But he thinks that it is most likely made in the 1800s.
Okay, fair enough. Well, at least he looked at it, right? He did not
he bothered.
So that's you said he's curious, so that's like the first step in any discovery, right? Curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very important to be curious, I think. You have to know what to look for if you should have possibility to find things.
Right. Well, I'm impressed that after so many years, the Kensington Runestone still draws people's attention and curiosity, and they are hungry for knowledge and new discoveries. If I may ask, where is the stone now?
Yes, it's in Alexandria, Minnesota.
Oh, it's in Alexandria.
Small town, yes. So it's at a museum there.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So it's protected. Is it inside?
Yes, it's inside a glass box and everything. So it's quite good protected, I hope.
Nice. Are you planning to visit it?
Yes, sometime I will. I have been in America only once, and it was in New York, and we went up to Niagara Falls, and even in a small trip in Canada, on the Canadian side.
Did you think about Vikings when you were traveling across the United States?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you're like a modern day Viking, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Tom, if I could send you back in time
Yeah.
to the 1300s, if I could send you to that spot, Kensington, Minnesota, and you saw this group of men, Paul Knudsen and his expedition, what would you tell them, or what would you ask of them?
Yeah. I presume that must have been a time traveler in that.
Yeah.
So I would tell them who I am and what that I come from that future, and tell them that this stone that they are carving, no one would believe
Okay.
that they was there. And then I would ask them why they are there and what
Mm-hmm.
they are doing, and who they are,
Right. Right.
because we don't know actually. Um, I have a theory that they even could have searched for a route to China,
Really
just like Columbus who searched for India, and
interesting.
because very many of the expeditions in America
Hmm.
was about finding a route to China and the Far East
Right.
by going westwards.
Mhm. And it had to do with trade, right? They wanted
Yes, it
to
was
to
trade.
start trade. Hmm.
That's right, because it was limited on the eastward side, because there was a troubled time with the Muslims, and it was not easy to get to China.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of goods there, and who they wanted to trade.
Well, and may I add something? I was reading a book called The Last Kings of North America. It's about the Kensington Runestone.
Yeah.
And I recommend it to anybody who wants to learn about this stone and is willing to buy the book or get it from the library. So in
Mm.
that, it says that King Magnus had some problems with trade because the Baltic
Yeah,
was controlled by the Hanseatic League. It
that's
was
right.
a
Mhm.
league of German ports and merchants, and they controlled that entire region. So Norway didn't have its own ports that it could use in the Baltic. So Magnus was trying to jumpstart the trade with Greenland and Vinland, which was North America, because
Mhm.
he needed money. He needed the trade.
That's
And
right.
you might be onto something when you think that he had even bigger ambitions, that it wasn't just about reconnecting with Greenland and with Vinland, but pushing farther west all the way to Asia and to China.
Yes, exactly. Because they knew the world was around.
Hmm.
They didn't think it was flat. They knew it was around, that you could travel around the world. So
Hmm.
it's a natural thought. So I think that could have been a possible reason.
Well, and if King Magnus could establish trade with
Mm.
China, then he would have become fabulously wealthy, right? And he would have exceeded or beaten the Hansa and uh, the,
Exactly.
the German merchants, because
Mm.
they had nothing like this, right?
So that's right. So he was already controlling it in some parts,
Mhm.
and to be go exploring there, he could get more control over the new trading route eventually. So it I think it's very likely that could be a reason for the expedition.
Mhm. There are other rune stones that were found in North America, and
Yeah.
yes, just like this Kensington runestone, they're not taken seriously. We even have one in Nova Scotia. It's called
Mm.
the Yarmouth runestone,
Yeah.
and it's in a museum, and people have been trying to decipher it for a long time. It's quite faded, and I think the symbols got damaged, so
Mm.
we don't know their true form anymore. It's
Mm.
hard to translate. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's bad because uh, most of the stones are considered as hoax, and that's not good.
So I want to ask you something about Kensington Runestone that I find a little puzzling. It is said that there are some really thin lines on it, and some people seem to think that the lines were the result of the growing of the roots of the tree, because you said that
Yes,
when the stone was found, it was surrounded or entangled um, um, in roots, right? And that those
yes.
roots caused some marks or some damage to the stone.
Bleaching marks in the start when they are young. The roots um, sucks out iron and metal from the surface of the stone, which bleaching the surface. So it's possible. And Scott Walter had examined the stone in this new documentary of Peter Stormer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
And
he
he mentions the roots and the bleaching.
yeah, yeah. So he claims that he can prove that those marks on the backside of stone actually are root marks.
Interesting.
So that's very interesting.
And that would add to the authenticity and credibility of the stone, right?
Absolutely, that's adds a very good
Right.
uh, evidence to that.
Mm-hmm.
So no, there are. I hope that Peter's documentary comes to America
Me
on
too.
television.
I'd love to watch it, and I would love
Mm,
to talk to him and ask him what it was like
yeah.
to go on this kind of expedition and see the stone and talk to all the key people. Are members of Olaf's family still around, like his descendants?
Yes, yes. One of them are still. He is in the documentary. Darwin Oman is his name.
Oh,
He's
so
in the documentary as well.
okay, okay.
So
Mhm,
that's very fine.
mhm.
And no, they to talk about the documentary, they did something that we have discussed a lot of in the Kensington Facebook group we
Mhm.
have, and that is a ground penetrating radar search
Oh,
on the Discovery site.
okay.
Because many believe that the exact spot where the stone was found is not the right spot.
Really?
There is a marker at with a sign today which marked the finding spot, but that is not the exact spot. And they did a ground penetrating radar search.
Hmm.
They found something that fits better. The disturbed soil that you could see on the screen,
Hmm.
that fits with the hole for it. They did a small dig where the stone was found,
Hmm.
about 1 meter, I think, in diameter,
Hmm.
and that's about 6 feet deep. And they found disturbed soil.
Interesting. So you think that's where the stone used to be?
Yes, that was the finding site, and it is some meters from where the markings is today.
Okay. Are
Mm.
there any graves or signs that somebody was buried in that area?
The one there are there are animals that are very curious, which they saw on the ground penetrating radar images. So, but to find out, we need to dig.
Okay.
I really hope that we can get a professional archaeological digger at the place.
Right. What would be the definitive proof in support of Kensington Runestone? What do you picture could be or should be found that would prove beyond any doubt that the stone is authentic?
Oh, if they find some tools that are medieval, for example, jewelry ring or something that someone has dropped at the same place where the stone was found,
Okay.
that could be a very good finding.
So just more artifacts from that
More
era.
artifacts, yes. And if you can find parts of a campfire, for example, which you possibly could carbon date coal, and that fits with the 1300s, that would be positive. And even the grave of those 10 dead men. But that is a one-day journey north of the stone at a lake with possibly two skerries or rocky islands.
Okay.
But it's not easy to find. It's many possible places.
I know that in the Viking era, Vikings were oftentimes buried through what was called the ship burial. So they would put the body on the ship and then set it on fire, right, as it was floating
That's
on a lake or the ocean. So do you think this was still the custom in the 1350s,
No.
1360s? No?
This was strictly forbidden at that time. After the Scandinavians became a Christian, they didn't have permission to do the old pagan way. So there was no cremation, for example. That was not the Christian way to do it.
Therefore, if there are still any signs of graves from that time, they would be normal Christian graves where you put the body in the ground, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
That's right. So if they manage to find something that you could take a DNA proofs or samples of, and that fits with Scandinavian, European DNA.
And the graves, would they be marked with crosses or with runestones?
Oh, I believe it would be marked with wooden crosses or something.
Okay. Yeah. So it would be marked with a cross. Okay, that makes sense.
Yes, I think so. If there was wood there, because this is in the line with the prairie and the wood line. There was prairie fires and
right.
We don't know how it looked back then.
Speaking of religion, I was surprised to learn that the bishop of Greenland was also the bishop of Vinland. That was North America, right? That means that the Catholic Church at the time was aware of this land to the west. So they knew that North America existed. Whether or not they knew how big it was or that it was a continent instead of an island, that's disputable. But to me, it sounds like the church knew that Vinland existed, and they even had a bishop who was responsible for it, right?
That's right.
Would the Catholic Church, let's say the Vatican archives, would they have any documents about this journey from the 1300s? Paul Knudsen's journey?
It could be possible. They have many documents. Perhaps someday someone find anything. But it's a lot of documents to read, I think.
Right.
You find it.
Well, I was just thinking that, Paul Knudsen was looking for the Greenlanders who abandoned the Christian faith and
Mm.
joined the native people of North America. So I'm thinking that it was an important thing for the Catholic Church to bring these Greenlanders back into the fold of Christianity, right?
Yeah,
The,
absolutely.
that they would want to know what happened, and
Yeah.
if Paul Knudsen was successful, they would have asked for some kind of a report, right?
Mm. It could be possible that those 8 men that are reported who went back to Bergen, Norway, in
Yeah.
1364 could have made a report about that.
Okay,
So,
Tom. You
mm.
you gotta go to Rome and see if you can gain access to the
Yeah,
Vatican archives and search. Yeah.
I have to learn Latin. It's hard enough to speak English.
Oh well, you're doing great. Um, is there anything that you want people to know about the Kensington Runestone that we haven't mentioned yet?
There are many things, and I think there are many good books. You have mentioned a few books, and I think it's smart to read those books that are available,
Okay.
and even the novel the fiction novel that I have
Yeah.
write about. I actually have 2 novels, as a short one, novelette, I think you call it.
Okay. No, or
Yeah,
novella.
yeah, it's a
Novella.
very short story, but the other is a novel. So it's the shortest one is entirely in the medieval times, and the long one is both in the present time and medieval time.
Yes.
So the 2 stories woven together in that. And there we have many of the theories and things that have happened around the stone in
And
the story.
people can join your Facebook group, right?
Yes, they are heartily welcome. So that's very good.
Good.
So,
Well, I will make sure that we show the picture of your Facebook group and the picture of some of these books so that those people who are watching this or listening to this interview
yeah,
can learn more about the Kensington Runestone.
that would be great. Mhm.
Good. Good. Well, thank you very much for your time
Yes.
and for all the information that you imparted. I just have one last question. The little Viking statue that I see on the screen, can you tell me a little bit
This one. This is a little big owl. It's someone from Minnesota named Robin who sent me this statue, which in Alexandria, Minnesota, they have a large statue of this one.
Oh, so you
Actually,
have Viking statue from Minnesota.
yes, that's right. So,
Okay,
this,
I'll show you what I've got. I don't know if you can see this,
okay, I
but
see.
can you?
It's Viking. I see. There's Odin or
Yeah. So these are actually chess pieces. Well, they are replicas of chess pieces that were found on an island, and I believe it's the Isle of Lewis, and it's part of the British Isles.
Mhm.
Somebody found a set of chess pieces in a box under a sand dune. So it was quite the amazing discovery, and it was actually from the Viking Age, and they
Mhm.
were made out of tusks, like ivory tusks.
Yeah, walrus,
I think
walrus,
walrus. Yeah, 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 yeah. They were
Greenland.
made out of walrus tusks. So
Mm.
these are plaster. they're not they're
Okay.
not the real deal, but I like them. They make good props, and one of them is a Viking berserker
Oh, I see.
biting the shield. He's biting the top of his shield.
Oh, a tough guy.
Yeah, he's a tough guy.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, Tom. Well, it was great pleasure to speak to you. I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yes, the
If
same here. Thanks.
Thanks. If you have any new discoveries regarding Kensington Runestone, please send them my way. I would love to educate myself more on this subject.
Yes, I love to do that. I really hope there is some progress in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. I wish you a good evening.
Yeah, same to you. Thanks.
Okay,
Have a
bye
nice
bye.
day. Bye
Bye.
bye.